Like a lot of people who've entered the data industry, it wasn't my dream out of college or anything like that. It's where a lot of the opportunity was. So again, my goals initially were to do something in both finance and technology. So that were my undergrads. That's what I was always focused on, even in high school. And so I spent a lot of time, searching for jobs, searching for industry, searching for sectors that I could leverage both sides of the coin. Right? There's a lot of places where you can apply finance to technology, or you can apply technology to finance, but a very few number of industries that really require expertise in both sectors.
Hey guys, and welcome to the Grow IT podcast. One of your hosts here, Trey King. And today we are very excited to have our guest, Matthew from DataForge. And we'll be diving into his story a little bit today, as well as what it is his company does, and some engaging insights, as usual, into the technology industry. So make sure to stick around for this one. But without further ado, Matthew, welcome.
Thanks so much, Treg. Appreciate it. I'm glad to be here.
Excellent. Matt, if you don't mind, if you could just kind of please just introduce yourself to the audience and just tell us a quick snippet of your story.
Sure. Yeah, my name is Matt Kosovec, currently based in Chicago. Background is primarily in software consulting. I spent a number of years building data platforms and software platforms, custom solutions. Then
Oh,
spent a
wow.
number of years in the private equity sector. So doing a lot of diligence work and private equity advisory for some of the largest firms in the world. And then finally spent a number of time being an entrepreneur. So building a lot of products within the four walls of the company I was working for. And finally, these past few years, we spun a business out of the firm we were working for and have been building it from the ground up as a data platform, and excited to share more about that today.
Excellent. Matt, tell me, how did you get into this business sector? What was it that sparked your interest from the beginning and things what you're so passionate about?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like a lot of people who've entered the data industry, it wasn't my dream out of college or anything like that. It's where a lot of the opportunity was. So, again, my goals initially were to do something in both finance and technology. So that were my undergrads. That's what I was always focused on, even in high school. And so I spent a lot of time, searching for jobs, searching for industry, searching for sectors that I could leverage both sides of the coin, right? There's a lot of places where you can apply finance to technology, or you can apply technology to finance, but a very few number of industries that really require expertise in both sectors. And I found, again, this niche in the private equity due diligence space, in private equity advisory space, where you really need to understand all the deep technology, and then your goal is to translate that technology into investment models, or matching it against their thesis for acquisition,
Yeah.
or whatnot. And that was a really interesting space for me. So I again built my career around finding my way there. Spent a number of years again, hey, where are the most interesting projects to work on? And at the time they were in data. So lots of trial by fire. I got the position actually in data right out of college. However, I thought I was going into an electrical engineering interview, and then in the process they said, "Hey, do you know what a SQL join is?" And I said, "Well, yes, I do, but what are we talking about?" And so
Yeah.
actually somehow I got the job, and then I had to change my class schedule or whatever for my senior year to say,
Yeah.
oh crap, I got a data job. I should probably learn some data stuff. So like I said, a lot of people, I've kind of fallen into it, but really got into it and really went deep on the tech side. I'm really passionate about all the different things within the market, as well as a lot of the different technical concepts that have changed and evolved over time. And that's what we do at DataForge is try to bring all of those concepts and those ideas into the future, and match them up against the market trends.
Tell me, actually talking about the trends, based on Matt, based on your expertise, like what current trends are you picking up
Yeah.
in the market at the moment? Like what way is the wind blowing? What have you been noticing?
Yeah, so we operate specifically in the data transformation code world. And it's
Okay.
a bit of a niche, but it is, again, as you can imagine, anything in data or anything in technology, right? It evolves
Mm.
very quickly. And like a lot of the other industries, a lot of people are trying to understand how large language models and things like ChatGPT are going to affect the market. And like a lot of other software, it is approaching some type of terminal velocity to impact us directly. So the quick background of the market is it used to be basically a bunch of handwritten scripts with no structure. There were really no frameworks. It was developers building things by hand, mostly in SQL, which is the kind of language of choice for data professionals. And they would use these scripts and basically custom design how they would be kind of, hey, run this one first, this one second, this one third.
Yeah.
The most recent evolution in our market has been the introduction of some frameworks. And they've basically brought a couple ideas from the computer science world and the software engineering world over to the data side, if you will. And that's maybe another thing that most people don't know is software engineering and data engineering actually have very different professionals and very different experts. And there's a lot of differences in the way people actually build and code and operate in
Okay.
those two sides of the market. So in the data world, again, there was this recent development with tools such as Spark, which is now become very popular with Databricks, is a major vendor in the industry. Databricks was originally built around this concept of Spark. And the other major player in our space is a company called DBT, Delta Bravo Thomas, right? Um, and they both came up with this idea of introducing a framework to help developers build, scale, and operate their platforms more quickly and with a lot of these kind of modern ideas introduced. What we're doing at DataForge is taking that to the next layer, right? We're basically introducing additional frameworks, additional structures. And there's two parts of that. Of course, it's just kind of the next iteration on, hey, more structure provides the same benefits as those solutions or technologies did the first time around. But the other side of it is because of this structure, we actually have a really interesting play into the large language models because where the
Okay.
industry market and trend is going is,
Yep.
hey, how can less technical analysts, developers or even, business users, how can they engage with data? How can they engage with the all the knowledge, right, that lives within all the data that lives within all these organizations? And how can they go and get access to it? And how can they then, produce reports or models or machine learning or whatever it may be without the need for a huge amount of technical expertise, right? So using large language models to help translate from natural language, right, into the code or the structures or the architecture that powers these platforms from a day-to-day basis. So what we have at DataForge is really that layer. We've added this framework, this layer because essentially going from large language model to kind of free form is impossible. There's just too many variables in order to solve that problem just with machine learning, just with kind of AI. Having us as a framework in the middle ground is really where we see the future moving is stuff that will look a lot like us are going to
Yep.
help bridge that gap between these large language models
I
and the free
gotcha.
form code bases that everyone's trying to build.
Tommy, and having said that, what's your take on the current market sentiment at the moment?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'd say there's a lot of confusion and a lot of change. I think again, there's a lot of uncertainty in the Databricks for Snowflake space. I think that's the primary focus of our industry is kind of who's going to be a winner. And my own thoughts there are, they both grew up as not competitive, but complementary platforms. In fact, I have a number of customers who use both
Yeah.
which today is like a swear word, right? It's almost like you need to
Yeah.
pick one, and if you have both, you're failing. So that's an industry trend that I see is interesting. But yeah, the sentiment is, how do people get on to these more modern solutions that really have less overall operational cost, right? So shifting from people cost to software cost and then overall lowering your IT budget is really the focus, right? Previously, it was all about growth. It was all about capabilities. These days, everyone's very focused on cost optimization, operational
Yeah.
efficiency. How effectively can we run and do the same thing that we've been doing, but in a new way that again helps us save money and distraction and everything else, right? Because ultimately, most of our customers, they're not data companies. They're a manufacturing company or a healthcare company or
Well,
something like that, right? Their core business isn't data, but they need to use data. They need to have these platforms in order to be competitive, right? To drive the insights, to make the decisions, to help with their strategy. And so, how to drive that strategy, how to drive that value while keeping the costs, under control and also keep them predictable.
Yo, Matt, you've listed a couple of interesting points which I would label as good value points for your business. If you don't mind, what would your take be on the most significant value what your business can bring to other businesses? I don't know
Yep.
if you maybe want to use maybe a case study example or just
Yep.
for the listeners to understand a bit better.
Yeah. So what we focus on at DataForge is being able to adapt to change. So
Okay.
what a lot of the other technologies are very good at is developing and building a platform or a solution or a data model that is well known and isn't super dynamic, right? It's
Mm.
we have our 10 reports that we need to run our business, and it comes from our two systems. And from that integration and that deployment is very straightforward to develop. Where things fall apart is when there's a constant need for new reports, or there's a constant need for new data sets, or hey, we're at just these 10 reports today, but we need 50 in the future, or we want to build machine learning capabilities and we now have 10, 20, 30 models we now need to feed, both from a development and kind of ML ops perspective, as well as ongoing operations of those models. And
Yeah.
how people then move from this kind of relatively simple world to this all of a sudden complex, constantly changing world is where our product comes in. So again, our best case study is for, again, highly acquisitive organizations,
Mm.
where their core strategy, they're often private equity backed, organizations that want to buy a new company every 60 to 90 days. They're these roll up aggregators, right? Who
Yeah.
are rolling up smaller organizations into the kind of parent organization, and their core growth model is all about this inorganic growth strategy. And their most powerful break on how quickly can they acquire is the integration, is how quickly they can deal
Okay.
with
Gotcha.
bringing on these new systems, these new solutions, these new
Yeah.
platforms under the umbrella of the IT organization. And so by leveraging our technology, by leveraging our framework, by leveraging our best practices that come as part of our software, they're able to rapidly accelerate that. And it's usually an order of magnitude faster, right? So rather than a 2 month to 2 year kind of timeline, in order to do those integrations, they're able to get it done within kind of a 2 to 6 week time period, depending on what they're doing. And so that's a huge shift then in the mindset
Definitely.
of the whole organization of how quickly can you do these things and add these things to the existing solution.
Thank you. That was quite profound.
Mhm.
Tell me, Matt, talking about mindset, what mindset would you say is needed to be a successful founder of a company?
Yeah, I think it's a mix of ambition and patience. I think are my two key attitudes, right?
Yeah.
You need to have a big idea that you think is going to change the world in some way, or at the very least change
Yeah.
someone's life in some way.
Yeah. Definitely.
Maybe not the life, but maybe not the world, but maybe at least a profession, right? So again, we
Yeah.
specifically focus on changing the world for data engineers, and helping them do their jobs better, or again, changing the world for data analysts, right? Helping them become power users, or better developers, even if they don't have a technical background, right? And I think identifying that, what's the problem statement and what problem are you solving in general, I think is critical. And then patience, I think there's a lot of really hard things that go along with being a founder. For us, it was, there's the carve out process, and then there was the whole, startup of our business. And everything takes longer than you expect. And you want everything to be perfect, as it goes. But, just understanding that, these things are oftentimes, businesses are ultimately run by people, right? And that you sell to people, right? And, oftentimes it's not as perfect as you'd want it to be, right? In terms of it's not a technology system. It's not an inorganic thing, right? Ultimately, business to business, even, right, is people to people, even though it's at the corporate level.
I agree.
And so having the patience and understanding that, you need to build relationships, you need to build the marketplace, you need to understand, right, all the different factors that go into it. And don't panic, right, when things are not straightforward, or
Mm.
don't work the first time, and having the patience and persistence to get through those hard times is critical, because So long as you have the core idea, so long as you know there's value, so long as you're solving a problem in the market and your customers like what you're doing, just continuing to pound the pavement, I think, is something that's underrated, especially as a founder. Constantly being distracted by many things.
Well said. I'm thinking now about the younger generation, if I want to call it that, or
Hmm.
entrepreneurs wanting to enter the markets, and let's say for this type of space, or even just growing a business in general. If you don't mind to maybe give us maybe one or two things that have learned in your career that you are willing to share to that's assisted you obviously to grow not just yourself but the business as well.
Yeah, by far the biggest thing for me and the best advice I've gotten is never underestimate what people will do for you if you just ask, right? So there's just a tremendous number of resources out there that are free.
Mm,
And it's not just about free YouTube videos or free, content or other things like that. It's truly just reaching out to people who,
yeah,
again, have been in your position before, who were startup founders themselves or were in the industry, right, that you're trying to tackle or enter as a startup
yeah,
founder. And there's just a tremendous number of people out there who are just interested to help, right? Hey, whether it's a technical thing or a startup, what stage you're at, or how to get funding, or how to even think about, should I get funding, or where or how, and what's the process there, all of those things, right? YouTube is great. Podcasts are awesome, but those one-on-one conversations where,
mm,
again, just they weren't people I knew before. They weren't, my family member or some connection, right? The most valuable people have been, hey, through this person who I kind of knew from a previous position, they're connected. Hey, you can make me a friendly introduction. And then, next thing you know, you're 2 hours into a phone call and your whole world has changed because you've just simply asked for help, right? People are
mm.
very willing to give their time often. Sales is a different thing, but it's amazing what people will do and what people will advise you on and how helpful that advice can be if you just ask.
That is excellent advice. I fully agree with you. People still buy from people.
Yep.
And one should never forget that doesn't matter what platforms or what ways or methods one uses or
Mhm.
strategy. So no, well said. Tell me, Matt, where can the listeners get hold of you guys?
Yeah, sure. So obviously you can hit our website, dataforgelabs.com. On that, we have a number of blogs which can help you get an introduction to our solution, our product, and where we have value. We have a number of case studies on there. I gave you the one around buy and build. We have a number
Yeah,
of other ones there to look through. And we have an emerging YouTube channel. My
excellent,
co-founders and I
excellent.
have spent a lot of time recently focused on, again, getting all of the technical knowledge, not just about DataForge, but about all of the concepts that again data engineers struggle with and think through. We think that there's a really solid approach, even from a best practices perspective, that can help young engineers and developers who are maybe don't have those resources, right? Don't have the mentors
Yeah,
or the architects to learn from who can jump into our content and really learn a lot about how to think about these problems and how to help themselves build in a way that will look great and feel good both for them and the organizations that they support. So yeah, again, and that's just you can search us up. It's just DataForge Labs on YouTube as well.
lovely, Matt. I can fully understand why you guys are so successful. You've got a very good value points, and I wish all the best to you and the business. I really think you guys are great. Thanks a lot for coming on.
Yeah, appreciate you inviting me, Treg. It's awesome to meet you and looking forward to more.
Take care. Bye now.
You bet. See ya.